Alvin has been a part of my life for so many years now as a director, mentor, friend, and I can say there isn't one day that goes by that I don't miss him. My name is Sylvia Waters. There was a moment I was a student, and then years later, a dancer in the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, until I was invited to be artistic director of what we now know as Ailey 2. My education really was through the Ailey Company and Alvin, and after having a formal education at Juilliard, and after learning so much from choreographers like Donald McHale, working with the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater was really where I did my greatest learning about what it was to be not just a company member, but to be a director. And the fact that he chose me to do that and he trusted me continues to mean so much to me. And what a great sense of humor he had. He would tell you the same joke over and over and he would laugh at it, I just learned so much. It amazed me that we danced in so many places abroad, even before those cross-country tours in the United States. And the enthusiasm, the unbridled enthusiasm of those audiences in the Soviet Union and in Germany and everywhere. And they didn't speak English, but yet they got it. They understood. There was this relationship of audience and artists, and there was this common language of dance and movement and theater. And he was by no means elitist about the arts and about dance. He would, in a moment, invite, in a way, uninvited audiences into the theater, like in Brazil, and he did that in Africa, where there were students and people who couldn't afford the price of the tickets. And Alvin would let them in, wherever he had a chance. We first started out as doing community work and outreach for audiences that couldn't get to the theater. So we would go to them, whether they were seniors or men incarcerated in prisons. In fact, our first performance was in a prison, Leesburg State Prison in New Jersey. We had 2 performances. And what amazed me about that is how they responded like any audience. They could have been at City Center. When we finished performing in practice clothes, they were bravo, they were on their feet, And we would do a question and answer. And we did a lot of those. But it's been a joyful odyssey, really.
The stupendous Sylvia Waters, director of Ailey 2.
After stepping down, I was doing something called the Ailey Legacy, which were residencies in dance departments of colleges and universities, where we teach technique and teach Ailey repertory, and I would lecture. It was part of a lecture series, and I did that for a while. So it kind of morphed into being in the archives. Where Alan Gray, who used to be head of the Kansas City Friends Board, he had all these notebooks of Alvin's, which I had given to him. And I made a copy of one book, for some reason, for Notes of the River. And these are Alvin's actual notes of the river. In it are little diagrams and people and phone numbers and steps, but he says very important, the choreographer as storyteller, story inventor, as ideas invented. The exhibit really strikes a chord, you know, and the realization of the extent of not just his celebrity, but his vision. And he'd had a vision for a very long time to have this great school with all of these disciplines taught and a children's program. And he had a program for the blind, and he wanted one for the deaf, except having the special floor was too expensive. And he always talked about this since the moment I joined the company. We'd be backstage sometimes, and I'm ready to go on stage, and he'd be talking to me about it. And I said, oh, gotta go, So to see it evolve and happen and then shared with the world, is just fantastic. It's amazing to me. It's so foundational that he used the language of movement to communicate with people. In early 1970, he was one of the choreographers who wanted to video his works. He was way ahead, He said, we have to keep a record of these. And so to see some of that old footage was on Betamax at the time, which was very faint, but that was from that time. And I like watching the people watching it. And for my son to see it because, he was part of it in so many ways, his growing up. It's mesmerizing. It's a lot to take in. It's, for me, emotional. It's joyful. I'm so happy to see it happen. And it's important.